about a couple days before in the office we were working, and a couple of the cosplayers, there was a Zenyatta, and I believe there might have been maybe it was a Mercy, was actually in the office. They were friends with some of the people, and they were just, seeing Zenyatta walking through the office. It literally, I don't know, it was just a great feeling. And the costumes were really amazing. And I did ask the cosplayers, I was like, tell us if there was anything you would change in the design being a cosplayer. I think it was actually one of the cosplayers that had a Reaper costume.
Right.
And he said, can you give us more pockets so we could put something? Yeah, and I'm
Reaper
like,
needs somewhere to put his phone.
Yeah, he's like, can you give me like a couple pockets? We're like, that's good. That's really good.
Hi, I'm Danny O'Dwyer, and first I just want to say thank you so much for watching our 3-part series on the story of Overwatch. In this, our final episode, we focus on the 21 playable characters in Blizzard's latest game. The heroes of this game split into 4 classes of defense, offense, support, and tanks. These folks run the gambit from melee-focused ape men to Zen robots, Russian snipers, and Australian pyromaniacs. But how do you make a game which allows this many character combinations? Where do you find inspiration from? Where do you draw the line? And what happens when you find out one of them is broken? In today's video, without getting into exhaustive detail, I talked to the designers and artists behind Overwatch about the process of creating the game's 21 heroes.
Presumably every time the hero team starts to give people new abilities and whatnot, it causes you nightmares, I imagine, right?
Sometimes, yeah. So early on in the project, I had a conversation with Jeff Goodman. He's kind of our principal hero designer, and the guy is amazing at what he does. And he let me know that one day, and it wasn't on our initial list of heroes, one day we will have a flying hero that can go anywhere they want to in these maps, which was sort of a terrifying thing for me to think about at the time, but...
it's like World of Warcraft all over again, when they put flying mounts in.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that brings back some memories, actually. But yeah, so it's a little bit like that, where I kind of realized early on that these maps were going to have to support a lot of different functions for heroes.
There were quite a few that made some pretty serious changes over time. I mean, it also ranges of how they changed. So a character like Farah came from a gameplay concept. We're like, well, she was one of the earliest ones. We're like, well, we all love rocket launchers. Like, we should just put a rocket launcher in the game. So the character is built around a rocket launcher. Like, okay, what makes a rocket launcher really cool? Well, being above people is really nice because you get the splash damage and everything. So what can we build around that? And it kind of went from there. So we had a really rough prototype in there.
Farah, for instance, like you said, air superiority. We, Jeff Goodman, our principal designer, he was thinking of a character that had a jetpack and a rocket launcher. And those were the 2 main criteria. And we went through dozens of concepts for Farah. At one point, we called her the Rocket Queen. That's like our code name for her. At one point, he was Rocket Dude.
Arnold Sang came up with a bunch of different ideas and kind of threw them up there for everyone to discuss. And we had, a guy looking like Tom Cruise at one point, and we had there was just so many. It was great. I mean, I love that they could do that and just have all these different ideas. And
so that one was definitely originating from a design standpoint. A character like Zarya, for instance, it's just a character that we really wanted to do. Big, strong female character with a big gun, and design took that archetype and found an awesome kit for her, based around the art that we made.
We should do a cybernetic monk, and then Arn, our the lead concept artist, drew a picture of him, and everyone was like, yes, we're going to do that. And and then we figured out what a cybernetic monk was, and it was like, what if he shoots these energy balls and then has a yin yang or a buff debuff thing, and then occasionally he becomes one with the universe. It's like, okay, go.
But the character that we actually used as an R&D character to develop the art style was actually Torbjorn. And it's interesting because, like I was saying about marrying the old and the new, Torbjorn kind of sits right in the middle there, where Blizzard's known for World of Warcraft. You got your dwarf characters, and that was a place that we thought we could start and see where we could bring that archetype and push that, layer it on with like this near future tech.
So you take a character like Genji, and Genji, as you guys have seen early on, we had concepts of him real early. And so we had this idea all the time we were going to build him, and we had like a really rough prototype of what it could be.
Hanzo and Genji, they were at one point one character that we just called Hanzo, and he had like a bow, he had a sword, he had ninja stars, he had all kinds of, like, the ninja samurai archetype is so interesting to me. And you know, the team just loves that themes.
Once we got in there and started tuning it, trying to make it work, like it was an almost impossible situation for us because it's very difficult to make sort of an assassin, sort of high damage character with a melee weapon only in a game where everyone's shooting you all the time. So he probably did the most changing internally. You know, at one point he had invisibility and he was like backstabbing people and killing them instantly, and that obviously all went out the window. And so
we decided, oh, what if they're like these estranged brothers, and we can have the sword and the bow, and we can tack on all these different themes for both of them. And now, having their story fleshed out, I think it was really exciting.
It's always trite when people in the press try and make these types of comparisons, but there are like one or two characters which almost seem like commentary on or like references to other games that exist within the space. So when I see D.Va, for instance, like it reminds me a lot of Titanfall. It's a game I really love. And then for Soldier 76 is the funniest thing ever because it's literally like he's named Soldier 76 and his like shift is his move, is like running is his shift button. Like, are you guys sort of enjoying those little archetypes in the game?
The hero design discussions are a blast, those initial ones where it's just freewheeling. But it's interesting because Soldier 76 was a hero we basically designed after a play test like one night, and it was like, you know, we really need that hero that really speaks to people that have like been playing a whole lot of Call of Duty. Something that, you know, something that people, like, you know, especially because, I mean, a lot of our potential like younger players, they didn't play Team Fortress way back in the day. Like most of the first person shooters really know are the modern military style shooters. We're like, hey, you know, so what would that hero look like? So, well, we have to give it an assault rifle. It's like, duh, okay, we give it the assault rifle. And then it's like, well, you know, if we want to like speak more towards like, you know, someone, you know, it's very easy to understand. It's like, hey, what's another thing we give them? Oh, well, the rocket launcher on a cooldown. It's like, all right, there we go. And it's like, all right, that's another one. They were like, okay, well, if something like everyone like when they first play this game is why can't I sprint? Okay, we'll give this guy a sprint, or that's cool. And then we started coming up with crazy ideas for ultimates, and we're like, wow, what if we like auto aimed? And we're like, wow, because we were like, well, we gave Widowmaker the ability to see through walls. Let's give like another like traditional FPS cheat to a character and just call it an ultimate. And that's what we did. And that literally all came together, probably like that seed of like that hero, like at one night, and it just sort of like clicked. So I mean, a hero like that, it's like just comes together super fast, and you know. And then there's, you know, Bastion, who's had a bit more of a lot more changes like to him like over time. I think he's gone through, God knows how many ults.
I don't even remember now. I want to say 6 different ults or something internally. He was literally like flying at one point. He had like almost like Pharaoh-like jets, and
you know, he could shoot through walls,
launch volleys of grenades up in the air.
We premiered him at BlizzCon with like a little tank drone thing.
So, you know, we ended up narrowing on what he has now, which is great because it fits really well with his transformation kit, where he's got this third super form that's just like he only gets to do occasionally, and it's like the ultimate version of what he already does. So ended up working in all directions, but we didn't want to just sort of toss out this ultimate they'd had before. Even though it didn't work for him, it was a lot of fun still. We liked it, it just didn't really work for his character. So by the time we got around to working on Roadhog and Junkrat, you know, we had saw this opportunity in Junkrat to make his Riptire ultimate, which is sort of a different version of the old, what did we call it back then? I can't remember, the explosive mine concept that we had with Bastion, which fits Junkrat much better, both in gameplay and the character, and everything just sort of worked out great there. So I think that's an example where we were able to like really use something that didn't make the cut on another character for him to great effect.
The team has spent years working these characters into the form we now see, chipping away at their rock, adding parts from others, and drawing inspiration from everything and anything. The result is a strong set of characters that even players like me, folks who usually stick to one or two classes, enjoy dabbling with. Hero swapping mid-game is part of how you play Overwatch, and finding your role within the team is critically important. But recently there was some backlash in relation to the editing of one of the character's in-game poses. The online debate that followed had little to do with Overwatch itself and more to do with battling personal opinions on the historically poor representation of female characters in video games and what some see as content censorship. So considering the news had just broke when I was interviewing Jeff, I thought I'd allow him the opportunity to respond for himself.
Can you talk to the decision earlier this week to remove Tracer's, or to edit Tracer's pose from the game, and the sort of communication you guys have with your users on the message boards and stuff like that?
Absolutely. So we made a decision. We had a pose called Over the Shoulder for Tracer that we were never really pleased with. Just from an artistic standpoint, it was one of those ones where we always kind of fell outside of the character's personality. Tracer's cute and playful, and she's the type of person who kind of does everything with a wink and a smile, and in the pose she takes herself very seriously. It's one of these like traditional, almost supermodel poses is how I would describe it. And there was an interesting discussion had evolved on our forums talking about issues that one of our posters had, that like this pose made him feel a little bit uncomfortable because his daughter really looked up to Tracer and felt like this was kind of a pose that wasn't entirely appropriate. So it was kind of those two things together, the fact that we were never really happy with the pose and we felt like it fell out of character, and the fact that some of our community members were saying, you know, like, hey, we think you guys might have crossed the line in terms of appropriateness with this. That helped influence our decision, you know, hey, we have a better pose anyway. A really cool, cute, playful, over-the-shoulder pose, so it's still an over-the-shoulder pose that we kind of should have gone with in the first place. Why don't we just use that pose instead? It felt like a win-win to us. I felt like I had communicated the situation pretty poorly on the forums. I get in very early in the morning, and I like to answer as many forum threads as I can very quickly. I go about my day, and then I come back usually late at night and answer a few more forum threads, just so our players know that we're listening, that we're interacting with them. And that was one where I really didn't put much thought into my response, and it was really wrong of me to, on a topic that I should have known was a sensitive one, to explain our reasoning behind the decision more so people had an understanding. You know, the part that upset me was that people questioned our artistic integrity and called it censorship. I mean, censorship to me is when somebody comes to me as a game director. I have the final creative say on anything that goes into the game. And censorship to me is when somebody comes and tells me I need to remove something from the game. And those moments happen. Like, that's a reality that exists in video games. That's not at all what happened here. What happened here was me as the final creative say over the game said, we have such a cooler, better pose. This one's obviously ruffling some feathers. This is an easy, simple decision, but I didn't communicate it that way with our players. So it became, I think, it became a bigger deal than it needed to be, and that fault was on me. And I'm sort of sorry to our community members on both sides of the argument, whichever way that they felt about it, because I feel like it was sort of this unnecessary drama. When all's said and done though, and probably at the time that people are hearing about this, it's probably blown over at this point. I feel like if the most controversial thing to come out of Overwatch beta is a single pose of one of our characters, I'll take that any day over, hey, I don't think the game is fun, or it's not cool, or Blizzard did something really bad. So, you know, in the grand scheme of drama that's inevitably going to happen, I guess this is not the worst thing in the world to happen.
Blizzard care about their characters, their heroes in the world of Overwatch, and this can also be seen in the way they tell the story of this world. There is no single-player story-led campaign in Overwatch, but the team at Blizzard have attempted to subtly express the narrative of the game world via environmental storytelling and some impressive animated shorts.
You know, we've sort of been trying to tell the story of Overwatch in this way that's a little different than how we usually do. We've really been trying not to over-explain things, over-figure out like what we already have. We've been figuring it out piece by piece with each hero, with each map, with each story we're trying to tell, and slowly we're sort of building this tapestry of what the story is. And it's been really interesting because it's been a really natural process. It feels a little bit like archaeology, like where, you know, we have these things we feel really strongly about, and then as we put them together or as we dig them out more, we start to see connections that we hadn't planned for, but once we see them, we're like, oh, well, that, of course that makes sense. And, you know, of course, you know, Winston and Tracer were friends and they went on all these adventures. And, you know, that's sort of the organic process that we've been going with for Overwatch.
You know, our hope has been that these episodes we've been working on, which is just one of the funnest projects we've done in years, that they fill in enough, not necessarily like, you know, the perfect scope of the world, but are just these very distinct short stories that kind of fill in. You're like, I get it. I get the tone. I get this world as it's, you know, we're I think next week the next episode comes out, which is based on Widowmaker, and it's much darker than the first one. It's almost the extreme of the gamut of tone and theme that Overwatch is inherently based on. So I'm totally fascinated to see what people think and how does that fill out their picture of the world, you know, more than just Widowmaker or whoever's involved in that episode. How does it make them feel, and what kind of new questions does it get them to ask, you know, about this unfolding tapestry? That's kind of what's fun about it. You know, it doesn't feel tracked. It doesn't feel like we're on a, you know, it's just the highway is completely open for us to explore themes and ideas, and it's super liberating.
One thing we wanted to try was, what if we don't just fill in all the blanks? You know, what if we don't just give you a big timeline and say, you know, here are all the big important things that happen, here are the, you know, explicit interactions between the characters that are in their history, and we want people to sort of experience these different parts and to start to form their own opinions, like solve some of these mysteries we put out there. Like there's a certain sort of almost like a collaboration that we're having with the community there, where we give them some things, we see what they're interested in, it might inspire us. But I think that we have a number of tools to do this. So obviously we have the game world, and throughout the game world we're able to put little hints in the way that the art is, you know, presented, the way, you know, like the decorations that we put around the map, the things characters say. It's quite limited, you know, 1 or 2 sentences back and forth, but in that you start to get the way characters feel about each other, they can respond to the events that are happening in the universe, and we start to kind of peel the layers off and show you what's going on underneath the surface.
And that's it. Thank you so much for watching The Story of Overwatch, a 3-part series on Blizzard's first new game world in 17 years. We do hope you enjoyed this little peek into how Overwatch was crafted. And for continuing coverage of Overwatch, as well as thousands of other video games, make sure you subscribe to this channel or visit GameSpot.com. Thanks. We'll see you next time.
A legend falls. Armor over.